Hi everybody. So in this rigging video, you're going to see me. My friend Kurt has come by to help as well, and I'm kind of giving him the update because he hasn't been in here a while. So we're going to do a few things. One, we're going to finish up this short push rod that goes from the bell crank to the aileron. Again, you're going to use solid rivets across for the end caps, not pop rivets because you don't have the room. Just a bit of warning: if you're one of the guys that uses a squeezer, one of the ones from Cleveland, these are 4-11s and they're dome heads. So you have to have the dome head die and a flat die. And no matter how thin my flat die, the squeezer doesn't have enough room to actually squeeze those. So you wind up having to use a rivet gun, which doesn't really make it a problem. But what I want to talk about, and then we're going to go over and we're going to work on the rigging of the ailerons. Now, what I want to talk about is that. So with the service bulletin, you now have a new aileron inboard aileron hinge bracket. It's very thick, very sturdy. And when you're putting it together, you're going to notice that it's not completely the same size on both sides. The inboard side actually is only half of a bracket. The reason it's only half of a bracket is because that push rod that I just finished, that you are hearing me rivet behind the camera because I didn't think to turn the camera, that push rod, as you deflect the aileron down, moves because because the bell crank that's underneath it is basically moving in a clockwise and counterclockwise, right? It's pivoting, and when it's doing that, it's rotating that short push rod. So as you go down, it starts to rub against that bracket. Now the upstop is meaningless. It already has so the plane already has an upstop, and we've measured that at 35 degrees. So that's already got to stop. But there is no downstop. So the downstop, I assume, is going to occur either at the stick or underneath the pilot inside where the connected control rod would be, because it's not on this aileron. But it is, in its way, it's kind of a stop. So as you start to deflect that aileron down past about 20 degrees, that short push rod starts rubbing against that bracket. So what we wound up doing, and I was afraid that it was because of having to respace the aileron out to the left so that it would not rub against the dome head rivets that you use with that new service bulletin bracket. Now, I know this is a lot and it's very confusing. I'm confused myself. But so what we did was we were able to save about 65 thousandths of an inch, which is the width of one good size washer, by removing excess skin from the edge of the aileron that sticks out from the very last rib, and from kind of just mildly shaving down the very tops of the dome head rivets that are on that hinge bracket. Now, if you're one of the people that just countersunk and used flat 426 rivets for the bracket, well, congratulations, you're already ahead of the game. If you didn't, you may need to do this. Now, once we move that aileron back over 65 thousandths of an inch, that in turn allowed the push rod to be farther back towards the inboard side, and thus gave us more range of motion with the aileron. So now the aileron itself can go all the way down to 30, even when it's rubbing. Now, we don't want it to rub, but it can go down to 25 without any rubbing at all. And I know that that's going to be well past the maximum for down travel for the aileron. I don't want just the aileron to be able to get to the maximum, right? Because there's a min and a max, and ultimately, I'm going to rig everything so that's ideally right in the center. But I don't want it to be so close that, God forbid, some crazy shit might happen. Like, you left it out overnight and it's cold and frost has developed between the push rod and the aileron, because, you have a gust lock in place that happens to shove that aileron down, and you know, it gets sticky. Oh, okay, well then why not put the stick the other way? Okay, so it'll be the other wing that does it. Anyway, that seemed to actually work out pretty well. So I'm very pleased that we were able to kind of re-rig it a little bit. Now, ultimately, now the links that they give you for the push rods are just kind of a guide. Ultimately, you'll use Vans sends two pieces of metal that are guides. One's for the outside of the aileron that'll show you when the aileron is square, and the other one is a guide that you use for the bell crank that tells you when the bell crank is square. So with those two in place, you'll be able to then size your push rods accordingly for your plane, which of course will vary because no one's perfect. Although Vans is. Anyway, and then in the next video, we're going to get back to the tail cones. So see you soon.